Hello, I'm Jyotika. Welcome to Excelling Psychology. I welcome all my young viewers today, the GCSE students. I unfortunately get very less opportunity to make videos for GCSE students because most of the time I'm busy with A levels. That's why whenever I make a video for GCSE, I try to make it as helpful as possible. So on my channel, you might not find too many videos. There are just a few for EdXL GCSE and AQA GCSE. I made one for Cambridge IGCSE also, in fact. But trust me, all the videos are going to be super helpful to you, including this one. So today what we are going to do is we are going to go over paper 2 for 2024 AQA GCSE Psychology. Previously I've already covered paper 1 for the same session. I strongly recommend you watch that video before watching this one because all the answer writing strategy that I've given there, structuring answers, following command term requirements, everything is going to be applicable here in exactly the same way. So it's good to cover all those sections first and then come to this one because you'll already know the approach to writing answers. And after all, in the same exam session, you have to appear for both papers. In this video, what we'll be doing is going over model answers for paper 2. Unfortunately, I don't think I will be able to cover the whole paper in this one video, unlike what I've done for paper 1. Because in this one, paper 2, there are lots of like detailed scenarios that we will have to consider. So I think I'll have to break the video into two parts, one section A and B, and the other C and D. So let's see what we can cover today in the time that I have. Model answers are there on the screen. I'm just going to quickly flash all of them on the screen now. If you need to take screenshots right away, my intent with this video is not to make you memorize these model answers. My intent is to make you understand how these model answers have been written. To save time, I've put up the model answers instead of writing down the answers as we go along. But I'm going to show you how the answers are structured, how they are answering what the question requires, how they are addressing command term requirements, and how you can write similar answers for questions that come on your paper. One thing is for sure, too many combinations and permutations of questions are possible. So they're definitely not going to repeat the same questions on any paper, like which have already been covered previously. As far as scenarios are concerned, research method situations are concerned, there are always endless new ones that they can come up with. And as far as the short answers, essay questions are concerned, they can always tweak the question a little compared to how it had come previously. So there is no point of rote learning. Our GCSE course is such that we cannot memorize answers. So definitely that is not what we are going to do in this video. Having said that, before we begin with looking at the answers, let me introduce myself to you. I'm Jyotika Varmani. I tutor psychology students across boards and curriculums, right from GCSE until A levels and even university level. So if you want to book your classes with me, I have 12 plus years of experience in both GCSE and A level psychology. My WhatsApp number and email ID are available in the description and pinned comment below. Most students, when they contact me for GCSE tuition, they tell me that they would like to continue in A levels as well. So they want long term help. So definitely, I provide help until the end of A levels and even beyond that. Okay, having said that, let's begin with the first question. So let's see what was asked in 24 for social influence, section A. The first question is, which of the following best defines bystander behavior? Shade 1 box. See, for MCQ type of questions, I have a very fixed guide on how to answer them. First, before looking at the response choices in your mind, think of the correct answer. So just pretend as if the response choices are not given and you had to answer from memory. Only after that, read what are the response choices. So that's step 1. Next step, after having thought of the answer and matched with the response choices, eliminate all the other possibilities. To just make doubly sure that you're getting the right answer, just remove out the other options, telling yourself why those are wrong. That way, you will be guaranteed to get the right answer. Many students feel that this is too lengthy a process. MCQs, they just want to cover in 1 second. So they don't want to do all these things. MCQs are those answers where you cannot lose marks unless you make some very grave mistake. Like they're the easiest to score type of answers. So trust me, when I speak out all these things, it seems it's lengthy because I have to explain to you out aloud. In your mind, these two steps will barely take 2 seconds to perform. It's as simple as that. At the most, 5 or 10 seconds. It's totally worth it. What is not worth it is losing your marks on an MCQ question. So do follow the guide that I'm giving you when you think of your answer. Okay, before looking at the response choices, what have we learned in the course about bystander behavior? It is about emergency situations. Most of you must be thinking of the Pilyavin study right now, which is right, or maybe Dale and Latagne's studies, depending on which course book you have learned from. So there's an emergency situation. There are some witnesses who are seeing a victim who needs their help. So how they behave in that situation, whether they offer help or not, that is bystander behavior. So, quickly to my mind, what I'm bringing is what have I learned in the course. Now, after having done this, I will look at the response choices given and I will see which one best matches what I have thought of over here. So, now instead of looking at the response choices fresh, I'm just seeking to match a correct answer to what is on my mind. That will give me confidence that what I'm choosing is the correct option. So, let's see A. Acting in ways that are viewed by others as socially unacceptable. B. Less effort being made when working in a group than when working alone. C. The actions taken when someone sees someone needing help. D. When perceived group pressure leads to people changing so that they fit in. I was thinking about help, and help is the one which I can see here. I was thinking about what bystanders do when they see someone needs help, so action a person takes is here. So I'm already very confident that C is the correct answer. But I know every mark counts in the paper towards my grade. 1 mark. Yes, it has happened. 1 mark can shift me from a B to an A. So I cannot afford to lose my 1 mark. That's why before marking the answer, I'm going to look at the other response choices, make sure they are not the correct ones, and then only I'll mark this one. It's barely going to take a few seconds. So the first one was acting in ways that are viewed by others as socially unacceptable. This is just non conforming behavior or breaking the norms. So definitely this is not about bystander behavior. Next, less effort when working in a group than when working alone. This is social loafing. At best, this is like explained through diffusion of responsibility, which is common to bystanders not intervening, but as of now, it has nothing to do with helping. When perceived group pressure leads to people changing so that they fit in, this is just conformity, that also NSI type of compliance, because of group pressure simply people are trying to fit in and not be rejected by others. So now after having ruled out that the others have nothing to do with helping and bystander behavior, now very confidently I can write the answer, which is C. In the actual paper you just have to shade into a box, so there will be a C option, there will be that oval next to it which you will just have to shade into. Here accidentally the wrong answer was printed, I apologize for that, but it has been corrected to C. So what you're seeing below, the C is written as the correct answer. Okay, let's come to the next question. What is meant by the term psychological term collective behavior? Okay, this is a completely AO1 question because they're just asking for the meaning of something. What is the question? There's nothing like apply something, so there's no AO2. There's nothing like evaluate or discuss, so no strengths, weaknesses have to be given, no AO3. This is clearly AO1. The only thing we have to be mindful of is it is worth 2 marks. So not only should we give a definition, we should also give some elaboration. See, when they're asking the meaning of something, definitely we are going to give the definition. We have to begin from there. But only definition will justify 1 mark. So along with that, we should give an example or some elaboration. That's all. Okay, so let's see the model answer to understand further. Collective behavior refers to actions that people carry out when they are part of a crowd or large group. This is the key part of definition, whatever people do when they're in large groups. To elaborate further, when they're in groups, usually they act different than if they were alone. Instead of this, you could give example also, like say de-individuation. In a football match, people might show hooligan behaviors which they would have not shown alone. Perfectly fine. Just make sure besides definition, there's one more point. That way you'll get 2 marks. Let's look at the next question. Now, this is a long scenario. I won't read out entirely what is there. Also, I have a habit of doing commentary as I read along because I want to show you like how you should be reading. So, in case first you want to read the situation without any interruption from my side, just pause the video here, read the situation fully, and then resume, or look at the screenshot which you have taken. Okay, so they've given us some article to do with obedience. Some researcher did some research and got shocking findings. Whenever we read a scenario question, when we are practicing, at least if not on the official paper, we should make some annotations in the situation. And we know it's a research situation given, so we should try to identify the research elements here and also try to relate the concepts which we have learned with what is given in the situation. What I don't recommend is reading the full situation or just skipping it and then going to questions and then keep coming back for the answers to the scenario. Rather, the first time you're reading only, as you go along, keep on marking the relevant sections so that by the time you come to the question, you're very clear on what is happening in the situation. Don't take a fragmented approach. Like, don't read the question and then keep coming back to one sentence and trying to find what is relevant. That makes answers really bad. Understand the full situation in your mind, like everything you know about the situation, then only come to answering the questions, because then you'll be able to answer them relevantly. You won't miss out anything in the answer, anything meaningful, because you're not trying to answer in fragments. Okay, now I'll show you how this is to be done. Like, I'll show you how you can annotate. The results of an experiment showed most people will obey when someone gives them orders, even if it means giving someone shocks. So here we see a task of some sort of there in the study. Some participants are being asked to deliver shocks and they are not refusing. Out of obedience, they are doing even that, an extreme action. The shocks were fake, but the participants didn't know. So we get some deception element here. See, we don't know. Later, will they ask us questions on deception or not? But wherever we can identify things, we should keep marking them. What if there is a question on ethics later? It'll help us to answer that. Okay, so then researchers did an experiment. So here we have the research method. We come to know it's an experimental study. He changed the method to test obedience level, so manipulation is going on every time. The participants had to give shocks of increasing voltage and maximum level was 450. So we can see exactly what is the manipulation. The research is just going on telling participants to give shocks to another person to an extent of 450 volts, which seems to be very extreme and painful. In the original experiment, 65% people gave the actual shocks. When they say original experiment, I understand, okay, there must have been many replications of this. As of now, this is the result of the original study. 65% means majority gave the shocks just because the researcher was telling them. They could not see the person being shocked, but they could hear fake screams. So again, deception. Also, the fact that they could not see the person, so it seems some sort of situational variable is here, which is affecting whether they are giving the shocks or not. The visibility of the person to whom they are giving shocks, that is influencing whether they are agreeable to giving the shocks or not. When we have also learned obedience in our course, we have learned some factors influence obedience. So that's why we are noting this. Obedience levels fell when the researcher wore everyday clothes instead of lab coat. Again, something is influencing obedience, as we can see, another situational variable, which in this case is what the researcher is wearing. Even that is influencing whether participants are following what he says or not. Obedience levels was lower when the experiment was carried out in the office instead of the lab. So again, one more factor. So it seems many replications of this study have been done, and in every replication, they are finding a different factor, a new factor, which is determining whether participants are being obedient or not. Here, whether the study is being done like in a formal settings or in a non-formal setting. This time, the result is only 19% gave the highest shock when the orders were given over telephone. Yet another replication. This time, the situational variable influencing results is how are they being told to give the shocks. Like, are the commands coming on the phone or in person? When they are coming on the phone, the result is that only 19% give shocks. Again, before coming to the questions in your mind, just ask yourself, what have I understood from this situation? Just give yourself a quick summary. What I have understood is researchers can ask people to do extreme things to test their obedience, like giving shocks to another person, which would definitely be considered cruel. And people do that. Obedience tends to be very high, majority of them do it. But many situational variables or factors can influence to what extent they will do it. For example, where is the study being conducted? Is the researcher personally asking them to do these things? What is the researcher wearing? These type of things can influence how obedient they are. So this was what the situation was about. Now let's look at the question. Use the article to identify two examples where the social factor of authority affected obedience levels and two examples where social factor of proximity affected obedience levels. In our course, we have learned about these things, and now I hope you can see, because we have read the full situation and understood it before coming to this question, we'll be able to answer very easily. I'll show you how. We kept on marking situational variables. So now we won't have to go and dig into where are the variables, we already know. And because we've understood the situation, when they say factor of authority, very quickly we can relate the meaning, like what all of this is showing authority, which one. We don't have to keep on reading now one line, is this showing authority or not? Is that showing authority or not? We've already understood it. So now quickly we'll be able to arrive at the answers. Many students feel let's jump to the question, then we'll search for the answers. That is quick. Trust me, no. That is very slow process, because after you read the question, you go to one line, you keep on judging. Is this relevant or not? Is this relevant or not? That is much more time consuming. Once you've already read the situation, you know with what is relevant very fast. So it takes much lesser time. Okay, authority, what we have learned in the syllabus, first just remember that. Authority affecting obedience level means someone senior, someone higher in position. How that seniority is influencing obedience, or how that power level is influencing obedience. So out of all the variables which we saw, let's see which were the authority related variables. One is wearing a lab coat. That was the first variable we marked. Lab coat becomes about like a signifying authority, symbol of authority. It keeps on reminding the person like this is an authority figure. Whenever they see the lab coat, they are reminded of that. Another can also be like where the study is being done, because if it's being done in a scientific lab, we expect authority figures will be there. Who will be there in a scientific lab? Some powerful people. So this location also signifies their authority. So definitely we're able to catch on to two authority figures, factors. Now they have asked about proximity. Proximity, what we have learned in our syllabus, is nearness or closeness. Basically distance. As such, because we've already marked all the variables, we can know that the remaining two must be the proximity ones, but still, let's check carefully. We should not take any question lightly. Every question is worth scoring marks. One thing is, in the original study, we see they could not see the person being shocked. Not being able to see, that has to do with proximity. It means that the person is at a distance, they are far away. That's why they cannot see them, though we don't know exactly where they are, but they can't see them, or at least some barrier is there. So again, in symbolic sense, they are far away. Also, one more we had seen, when the phone instructions are being given, here the authority is not nearby. There the victim was not nearby when they are getting shocked somewhere else. Here the authority figure is not nearby, so again they're at a distance, means this is also about proximity. Okay, now what they've done in the paper is, you can check the question paper, they have made a table. The heading of the first column is example of authority, and of the second is proximity. We just have to fill in. So whatever I marked and showed you at the situation right now, those variables only, they've been written here. I have nothing else to read out or add here. It's simply about listing what we saw in the situation. No explanation and all is required. So if you want, you can just pause and read through how the table has been answered. Let's come to the next one. It's a research methods question. We will expect some research methods type of question also. So your mathematical content question has been given. Table 1 shows the results from the version of the described experiment where researchers wore everyday clothes instead of a lab coat. Again, because we have read the situation fully, we won't have any doubt or confusion on our mind what is happening here. We saw there were many replications, so immediately we can understand, okay, this is one of those replications where clothes were manipulated. Here, what they're telling us is the researcher wore daily clothes instead of wearing a lab coat. And there were 24 participants, so we can note the sample size. So let's see what the results are telling us from this study. Because we have read the situation carefully, we know the dependent variable is obedience. Because after all are applications of the obedience study. So definitely researchers have measured obedience. This is the IV, that they are wearing ordinary clothes. This is the manipulation. They are not wearing a lab coat. Okay, now whenever we come to a table, how we should read? First, we should read the title of the table. This is a very important step. Students just jump to the column. You won't understand what is on the column till you read the title. Okay. Never be in a haste in the paper. What happens is once students are told 1 mark is 1 minute, they feel just keep on skimming through the paper. They are not giving you so much details like title and also that you skim over it. You have to read it carefully. Everything written on the paper carries meaning. So make sure you're reading properly. So this is a frequency table showing the voltage of electric shocks given by participants in the everyday clothes version. We already know it's about obedience. Here they have given us the operationalization. So when we see frequency, we are not confused. Frequency of what? Frequency meaning number of participants who gave a certain voltage of shock. How have we become clear on this? Like what are we seeing on the frequency column? Because we read the title of the table, as simple as that. Many times they ask us to give a conclusion after seeing a table. And number one reason why students can't give conclusion because they don't know only what the table is about. And why they don't know? Because they did not read the title. So don't make these type of silly mistakes. And one more thing, which is a little, I'm going on off a tangent, but because you're a psychology student, you should know this. Especially when it comes to practice and not the main exam paper. Read every research situation, understand every research situation. Students will tell me psychology seems so boring, so technical. This is the reason why. You don't read the situations. You just look at it from point of view of okay, I have to solve this maths problem. Psychology research is not about solving maths problems. It's about understanding behavior. So till you read situations, what's happening in a situation, how will you come to know what behaviors researchers are assessing? These questions which you get in your paper, these situations, they are opportunities to understand what type of research takes place, what are psychologists doing, what are they investigating in their studies. When you read these type of things, then only your interest will build in the subject. If you're going to take it technically, oh, which numbers are there, which formula I have to apply, how will you get an interest in psychology when you're not seeing only what is the psychology part of it? I know many GCSE students aspire to take A levels and psychology even in university. Don't kill your interest by taking a technical approach to the subject. Take a heartfelt approach to the subject. That is my advice to you. Okay, so now let's come to the table. After having read the title, we should read the column headings. On the left column, we can see voltage levels have been given. Since we've seen the table, we know it's the shock level. And right side is frequency. Frequency is always number of participants doing something in a study. So we are able to count the number of participants who have given a certain shock voltage. We don't need to read the whole table before looking at the question, but definitely we can just see an overview just to understand what is happening. So something like 40 volts, 24 participants gave, 105 volts also 24 participants give. There were total 24 participants. So all of them gave 40 volt shock, all gave 105, but okay. Now something different happens. At 180, it seems 3 participants have refused to give the shock. Because sadly, it's not all 24, it's 21. Now what's happening at 240? Another 2 refused to give the shock. At 290, another one refused to give. At 360, 5 refused to give. And at 450, from the 13 remaining, 4 more refused to give. So originally 24 gave the shock, the first level which was there. But by the end of it, by the time it came to the maximum shock, as many as 15 had refused to give the shocks. Again, did you notice how I made the table meaningful instead of just looking at the numbers? Let's come to the question now. Calculate the percentage of participants who gave the highest possible electric shock when the researcher wore everyday clothes instead of a lab coat. Because we've been reading the situation carefully, We know what will be the highest possible electric shock, 450. And we know how many have given it, 9. We also know how many are the total participants, 24. So now that we have to calculate a percentage, we know which figures we have to substitute. Generally, what is the formula for calculating percentage? N upon total into 100. In our situation, what is N, or number of participants? 9. What is total number of participants? 24, which we are seeing from the beginning. And we just have to multiply by 100. See, you're most free to take a calculator, you're most free to do manually. Whatever choice you want to make, you can make. Most students prefer a simple calculator, which is allowed in the paper. I also recommend that because manually students do end up making mistakes. Nowadays, maths is not very strong manually. I'll show you both. First, I'll show you on the calculator. Okay, so now I have on the screen a simple calculator. As you can see, I'll show you how to do the calculation. Substitution of numbers you'll have to do before this. The calculator can't do it for you. So make sure you have the right numbers. After that, what you have to do is n upon total. 9 upon 24. Press the equal to sign. Don't directly multiply by 100. Before pressing equal to, you'll get a wrong answer. So 9 divided by 24 equal to. Then press into, press 100. This is the final answer, 37.5. How you could do it manually is you have 9 upon 24 into 100. Keep on dividing by the common factor. 3 is common, so 3 will come here. Here you will have 8. So now you have 3 divided by 8 into 100. So now you have 300 by 8. Then you can do a division. So you can do 8 3s are 24. Then you will be left with 8 sevens are 58. I'm sorry, 56. And then you'll have 40, so 0.5. This way also you can do it. Okay, either way that you do it, you have to show your workings. Now students wonder, how much do we have to show in workings? Like, do we have to show this sort of a division process? No. What they mean by showing workings is, show what you're taking on the numerator, means show what is your n. You don't even have to write the formula, but just show the number that you're taking on the numerator. Show the number that you're taking on the denominator. So you have to show your total. Again, just the number 24. Show that you're multiplying by 100. Show by which number you're multiplying. Okay, and they have said take to two significant figures. This is also very important instruction I forgot to mark. Always read the question thoroughly, otherwise you miss something. Now what will happen is most students will leave it at this 37.5%. You lose 1 mark if you leave it to this because they've said two significant figures. What do we mean by two significant figures? First two most important or most valued numbers. That's what they want. Now, if I have 37.5, if after the decimal place I have 5 or greater than 5 digit, then the one before the digit, the decimal number, we need to add 1 to it. That's the rule for rounding to two significant figures. So make sure you write like this, 38%. Okay, so, okay, I'll just one more thing because students get a little confused about this. I'll tell you where you're getting your marks. For the workings, 9 upon 24 into 100, if you write this correctly, 1 mark. For the correct answer, 37.5%, 1 mark. For the significant two numbers, 1 mark. So total 3, 1 plus 1 plus 1. Okay, let's look at the next question. We are continuing with the same question here, the same scenario. The experimental design used in all of the versions, meaning all the replications, was independent groups. Quickly bring to your mind, what do we mean by independent groups? There must be two separate groups of participants always, like one which are being given strong commands from the authority figure, or the authority figure is wearing lab coat for them, or the authority is over the telephone for them. And for the other one, they are getting weak commands from the authority figure, like the authority figure is wearing everyday clothes, or the authority figure is not close to them, or the authority figure is not assertive enough. So always there are two groups, one which is being persuaded to be more obedient, and a separate one which is persuaded not to show that much obedience. Using your knowledge of how to plan and conduct psychological research, Discuss the reliability and validity of using independent groups. You need to cover both to get full marks, reliability and validity. Otherwise, they would have said or reliability or validity. Here they are saying both, means you make sure you cover both. That will be a big mistake here. Students will just read one part of it or they'll assume it's or and they'll give only one. You can't get 3 marks that way. Okay, so coming to a reliability validity, the way it's structured in this model answer, not compulsory you follow the structure, but this is the best one. Strength of validity, because independent groups design, we know it increases validity. So strength, weakness type of structure. And for the weakness, reliability. Also, I know it's very detailed. I will indicate to you how you can reduce length. But if you need to write this much details, it's better than just one liners like independent groups increases validity or independent groups reduces reliability. That's not going to get you any marks. This amount of detailing, even if not this amount, but some amount of detailing is required. Okay, so first let's just see what is there, then I'll give you further tips. See, independent groups increasing validity because we know order effects and demand characteristics will not occur when groups are separate. Order effects won't occur because participants won't get bored or practice. So fatigue effect or practice effect won't occur. If instead of this you're taking demand characteristics, you can say because they are not exposed to different conditions of the IV, they can't figure out what's the purpose of the study. They know only one condition, so they can't compare it with the other condition. So that is why the study becomes more valid because results are because of the manipulation of the IV done by the researcher, not because of fatigue or practice. So this is what is increasing validity. Now, if you're feeling the length is too much, you won't be able to cover. At least write that it increases validity because instead of order effects like fatigue and practice affecting participants, it's only the manipulation of IV which affects them. Write at least this much. What I have said right now, you will get full marks. Here, I've given in a way that students find easy to understand, otherwise, make it concise, like I've just said. But make sure one not to just say that it increases validity and not to just say because there are no order effects. Why no order effects will increase validity? There has to be reasoning, there has to be explanation. So somewhere in your answer it has to come because participants fatigue or practice will not affect the results, only the manipulation will. This reasoning or this explanation is the key to getting good marks. Otherwise examiners feel that you have just memorized, you have rote learned that independent groups design increase validity because there are no order effects. You don't understand it because you're not able to give a reasoning for why. You're not able to explain. And that's why in the mark scheme they say don't credit such answers much. They reduce to 1 out of 3. Okay, coming to reliability again. Why will reliability decrease? See, discuss, show your understanding. So here also I'll show you because there are more participant variables, individual differences can influence results. If you repeat the study with different people, you might get different results because individual differences between them might be different. You can reduce the length. I'll tell you how. Independent groups can be less reliable because participant variables can influence results such that if the study is repeated with other participants, the same results might not be replicated. This is the key here. This shows understanding. Instead of just saying less reliable, less participant variables, so less reliable, you're showing. Reliability means consistency. This is where consistency would be lost. We repeat the study, we replicate it, but we don't get the same results. Inconsistency. This understanding you have to show to get full marks. Okay, so 3 marks question, but very well defined. Two terms have been given, reliability, validity. We have to show our understanding of each to get full 3 marks. Let's come to the next question. Briefly evaluate Milgram's agency theory of social factors affecting obedience. For these evaluate type of questions for 3 marks, lot of debate takes place. How many points to give? My strong opinion, 1 point in Peel format. 1 point highly detailed, more than enough for 3 marks. You might be thinking one strength, one weakness. Many teachers say that. It's a breadth approach rather than a depth approach. Perfectly acceptable as long as you show reasoning, you show understanding. Superficial points, whether you take 1 or 10, will not get you marks. Supposing you're thinking, let me list five strengths and weaknesses. So I'll get more marks because I'm getting five instead of one. That's not going to get you marks unless you're able to show your understanding of it. And even in one point, you can show understanding, like I'll show you just now. See, as such, Milgram's agency theory has many strengths and weaknesses. I'll show you the strength and I'll tell you one possible weakness also. If you want to take that instead, or if you want to take that with this. Strength is real world evidence in our, especially if you're following the Flanagan textbook, which is the best one. We always have research evidence for all the topics that we are studying. So, there you must have seen the studies on Nazi guards in concentration camps. These are real world situations which have been studied, and we've seen how these Nazi soldiers did atrocities on the Jews, and later, when they were brought to trial and they were questioned why they did it, they absolutely refused to take responsibility. They said it was because of the orders of the authority figures, the army chiefs, that they were doing these things. So clearly, it showed they were not in an autonomous state, they were in an agentic state when they were doing such behaviors. So, this has real world evidence to support it. Real world studies have been done of these Nazi soldiers who did the crimes, and they have reported being in an agentic state. And it helps to understand that situation. Otherwise, it's very difficult to understand how so many people could commit atrocities on innocent others. So, this is a strength. Now, why this will score full marks despite being one strength? It's in a peel format. There's a point that there is real world evidence. There is evidence. Which real world evidence we're talking about? There's a specific example of it, Nazi cards. There is an explanation key. Why this is a strength? Because agentic state is not just a theory, or it's not just a phenomenon, it has been observed in such real world contexts. And there's a link. An answer has been given to the question directly. They asked us to evaluate, and we are showing this really exists, this state where people shift their responsibility onto others. Okay, I had taught you the PEC format last time. Some of you find that simpler. So, the same thing you can understand PEC. Point remains the same. Evidence and explanation gets combined. And of course, link is there. Concluding or linking back to the question, that is there. So, if you're giving in such depth, even one point is enough. Why students feel one point is less? Because they'll just write one strength is real world evidence in the Nazi situation. That's it. One sentence or two sentences, and they feel this is not looking enough. Why it's not looking enough? Because there's no explanation. What is the real world evidence when it comes to Nazi soldiers? You have to explain. They were in an agentic state when they performed atrocities because they blamed the authority figure for compelling them to do those actions. This reasoning or explanation is not there. That's why you also feel after writing that you have not given enough, and then to compensate you try to give a different point instead of explaining the same one. There you make a mistake. Explain or elaborate on this one instead of bringing in another one. Now, in case you want to give a weakness also, a weakness of agentic state, the simplest one would be alternative explanations are there. For example, other explanations of obedience are situational factors, like we have seen social conditioning is there, authoritarian personality is there. Any of that you can give, and you can suggest that agency theory might be an incomplete or a limited explanation. In many situations, other reasons might be there for why people are obeying. But make sure even that weakness, if you're giving, you give it in a peel or PEC detailed format. Don't just write it in 1-2 lines. Okay, let's quickly finish the next one. In this video, I'll be able to cover only this, so only section A. I'm sorry, I won't even be able to cover section B. Like I told you, this paper is a lengthy one. So, two psychology students were having a conversation. One says that she found Ash's study surprising. She doesn't believe she would conform in that situation. Myla was surprised too. She said that wasn't it like the everyday life? And the first one says the task is not like anything I have asked anyone to do before. Okay, so one thing we can see here is that they're talking about Ash's study. So before answering, we should just bring the study to our mind. Conformity, confederates, matching line, standard line, all that should be readily available in our mind. Second thing, when they go on discussing is it everyday, is it mundane, they are talking about ecological validity and mundane realism. So, research wise, what are they discussing here? How artificial is the study or how generalizable it is to everyday life? Now, they're telling us describe the study, refer to the conversation. It's a 9 marker, but with the situation, and explicitly they're saying also refer to the conversation. AO1 in such questions is worth 3 marks, AO2 is worth 3, and AO3 is worth 3. Meaning description of Ash's study conformity, just what we have learned in the textbook. That will get us 3 marks. Applying to the situation and showing here how Ash's study applies here, that will get us 3 marks. And evaluating it will get us 3 marks. Now, one or two tips here. One, keep AO1, AO2, and AO3 separate. Do not take a sandwich approach, take a separatist approach. Students do a very bad job of sandwiching points. I can't get into the details, I'm running out of time. But students do not make coherent units when they try to combine AO1, AO2, and AO3. So, unless you're very confident you'll be able to write a very clear answer that way, don't go for that approach. Make one para AO1, one AO2, and one AO3. Keep it distinct. Second, refer to the situation above. Try to do it in AO3 also. Not compulsory, but try to apply whatever strength or weakness you give to the written situation. It's very easy where we use evidence in the PEC or PEEL format. There, give evidence from this situation instead of giving some external evidence. That will help you to link back. Three, when they are strongly discussing some evaluation, like they are talking about ecological validity, make that only part of your AO3. That will be most relevant to what they are discussing here. So take the hint being given in the question and use that only in structuring the answer. So very quickly, now I'll do a run through because I'm running out of time. I'll run through this answer. For AO1, Ash's study is described. Yes, you can write lesser than this, but I'm highlighting the key points which you make sure you cover. Mention that it's a lab experiment. Make sure to explain the task that there were 7 to 9 Confederates who used 7 to 9 people at the table, out of which 6 to 8 were Confederates. A target line was shown, a comparison line. Participants had to indicate which target line which comparison line is matching with the target line in terms of length. Very important, give numerical results. Participants confirmed at least once with the wrong answer on at least 36.8% of the critical trials, where Confederates deliberately gave wrong answers. And do add in a conclusion. People will conform to a majority even in a non ambiguous situation, even when the answer is obvious. So you can reduce the length if you are giving all the highlighted key points, including the numbers. The 76% confirmed at least once I've ignored because one numerical result I've taken, that is enough. For AO2, in this situation, when Myla thinks that is it participants' everyday life and Anita agrees that no, it's not, they are discussing a weakness, that this is a lab experiment and matching lines is something people don't have to do in everyday life. Ecological validity, you can give examples. Also, more realistic tasks would be seeing whether people are wearing same clothes as their friends, coloring their hair in the same way as their friends. Those would be real life investigations of conformity, which look into these factors, not something like Ash. So in AO2, we've just explained what Myla and Anita are talking about with respect to the Ash study, which aspect they are considering. And in AO3, 3 marks, so 1 strength in detailed format. The point is, it's a lab experiment, so they had good control over extraneous variables. I told you the key thing is the artificiality or the lab experiment. Try to take that only in the evaluation. So we're taking that. It is artificial, which gives it a strength that researchers were able to control what answers Confederates are giving. Why is that a strength? Explanation. Because they are confident that whatever conformity was being seen, it was because of the group pressure, what the Confederates were doing, and not because of participant characteristics or anything else in the situation. For example, no one was demanding their obedience. Milgram made sure, Ash made sure of that. If it was a real setting, we wouldn't know people are just following and copying others, or someone is pressurizing them like an authority figure to do something, and we might misinterpret obedience for conformity. That doesn't happen in a lab study. So it increases internal validity. You want, you can add a sentence at the end. Unlike what Myla and Anita are discussing, lab experiments do not have all weaknesses. They can have a strength also like this of giving control, which helps to better understand a phenomenon. You can take weaknesses instead. You can take directly ecological validity as a weakness and say that it is unlikely that ASH's results would apply in more significant everyday events, like conformity might be higher when people have to decide whether to follow their friends in terms of which course they are selecting for university or which job they are applying for. The rates of conformity might differ. So that's it for this video. Unfortunately, I won't be able to cover the sections ahead, but I'll make videos ahead on how to answer sections B, C, and D. Till then, keep revising. All the best for your soon approaching papers. And I know lots of your papers have got cancelled, but the school is taking your papers, so all the best for that. And keep revising the previous and this lesson until I put up the next one. Any comments about this video or other videos, you can leave in the comments box. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.